afterlife sucked. Oh, what just happened there? Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome to another episode of First Impressions. On today's episode, Ellen Page is obsessed with death in Flatliners, the remake to the 1990 film of the same name. The plot is that a young medical student played by Ellen Page starts doing these experiments to induce near-death experiences in order to discover what the afterlife is like. She also recruits her fellow students played by Kiersey Clemens, James Norton, Nina Dobrev and Diego Luna, who also take part in these experiments, and they all develop enhanced abilities. But these experiments also contain quite a few side effects. So Hollywood is pretty much obsessed with remakes these days, and I'm pretty sure we're all sick to death of them. But even with all the pointless and unnecessary remakes that are churned out these days, I'm really baffled why they chose to remake Flatliners of all things. The original film wasn't all that great, and not many people seem to look back on it in particularly high regard. It's not regarded as a cult classic or anything. Don't get me wrong, it's not a terrible movie, it's very watchable, it has a cool concept, but it's otherwise a very unremarkable film. But contrary to what it might actually sound like, I don't actually want to see this movie fail. I was actually really rooting for this movie. I was hoping it would actually be good, because it does have a cool concept, and I think with a remake you could actually improve upon it. Especially considering the original Flatliners isn't exactly a masterpiece. And I was hoping that this movie would be able to reach its full potential. Instead, all this movie succeeds in doing is making me appreciate the original film more, because this newest incarnation of Flatliners just sucks. I hate to say it, but it's every bit as bad as you've heard, unfortunately. And I know there is some confusion over whether or not this movie is a sequel to the original film. This movie is pretty much a remake of the original film, through and through. And you would think with that, they would actually explore the concept in a more interesting way, and maybe take the movie in a different direction, right? Wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be too surprised about this, but this movie keeps calling back to the original constantly. The famous line of dialogue, "It's a good day to die," is said in this film, and there's a handful of plot points and characterizations, especially from the movie's third act, that are blatantly lifted from the original film. And when they're not ripping off the original film, they're just ripping off other horror movie cliches. This film is so poor in its attempts to scare the audience. It constantly abuses jump scares, there's a complete lack of atmosphere throughout, and even when there is the odd moment with genuine tension that's surprisingly effective, it's completely ruined by a poor payoff. And a lot of that comes down to the lackluster direction. The director of this movie also directed the Swedish version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and he really fails to bring any flair or style to the material. I mean, say what you want about Joel Schumacher as a filmmaker, but at the very least he's a competent director, and his directing is one of the main strengths of the original Flatliners. For all its flaws, it is a very good looking and very stylish movie. But this movie just looks and feels so bland by comparison. Granted, the script doesn't exactly help matters, it brings up interesting ideas and then does nothing with them. There's this idea that the flatlining process is almost like a drug because it gives the characters a new lease on life. They start getting very excited and very energetic. That's a pretty interesting idea, but the movie then does nothing with it. And there's also this idea where after flatlining they gain these new abilities, like they'll be able to play the piano perfectly or they'll be super smart. Cute idea, but in the context of this movie it just feels dumb, it feels pointless. Like the characters in the original film, the characters in this movie have all committed sins or major mistakes in the past that they have to atone for. That's an interesting idea, but it's executed very poorly. Largely because whenever we actually learn about the sins that these characters have committed, it really makes it hard for you to actually care about them, even if they do want to atone for them. And the characters are a real mess too. Ellen Page's Courtney probably fares the best because you can actually understand her motivation for wanting to carry out these experiments and her obsession with death. She's struggling to deal with the loss of her younger sister whom she killed in a car accident several years ago. But all that really amounts to is just a rehash of the creepy child that beats up Kiefer Sutherland in the original film. And then you have Kiersey Clemens as Sophia, who's trying to deal with these ridiculously high expectations that her mother places upon her. And then you gradually learn that she did something really horrible back in the day, and that does make the character very hard to like, unfortunately. Nina Dobrev's Marlowe and Diego Luna's Ray are very under-characterised outside of being in love with each other for most of the movie. But the worst out of the cast is easily James Norton as Jamie, who's basically inheriting the role that William Baldwin played in the original film. He's this very sleazy and obnoxious womanizing rich boy who's got this trust fund set up for him. And he's so unlikable and obnoxious whenever he's on screen. I get the feeling that's meant to be intentional, but his dialogue is just atrocious. And it doesn't help that Norton really plays up the smarminess to a very annoying degree. Granted, there's not really much you can do with a character this hateful. The cast overall, aside from Norton, are generally decent, but it just makes you feel bad because you know they're trying even though they have very little to actually work with. Ellen Page is a great actress. I really love her in films like Inception and Super, and you can tell she's really trying to make this role work. You can tell she's really committed to the film. Clemens and Dobrev do a fairly good job overall. Luna's fairly okay in the part, even though he doesn't really have a lot to do, and his character is just the skeptic. But with the issues of the writing, the directing, and even the editing as well, it's a surprisingly choppy movie. Even with all that, it's just a very dull film. Its pacing is very sluggish and it feels overlong. And with the lack of atmosphere or effective horror or anything really all that compelling, it really becomes a slog to get through. For me, this is the worst type of movie to review. It's not laughably bad, it's not entertainingly bad, it's not fascinatingly bad, it's not short either, it's just nearly 2 hours long, it's boring, and above all else, it's disappointing. I'm gonna give Flatliners a 3 out of 10. There's so many jokes about how this movie was dead on arrival or how it flatlined, but that's being charitable. This movie is more like a zombie that's been resurrected from the dead against its own will and it needs to be put down. Preferably with a chainsaw. So those are my thoughts on Flatliners. What did you think about it? Have you seen it? Hopefully you haven't, but if you have, what did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with reviews for Blade Runner 2049, the original Blade Runner and the Stone Man among several others. But in the meantime, feel free to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. If there's anything I can do to improve my presentation, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Danny Quinn, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.